So let me talk a little bit about the lipostat. So our body has a mechanism and system for keeping everything in balance. And for some of the scientists here, you'll know that that's the process that we call homeostasis. And it includes how we monitor and maintain our body fat levels. Now, a key discovery to how our body does this was made in 1994, and that was a finding of a hormone called leptin. Some of you guys might have heard of this. Its primary role was to provide the brain with a measure of body fat levels and adjust our appetite and our metabolic processes accordingly. Now, if body fat levels were low or falling, leptin levels would drop, and the brain would stimulate that person's appetite to eat more and reduce metabolism as a way of being able to conserve, sort of diminishing calorie reservoirs. But as body fat levels increase, so too does leptin, and it theoretically should shut down appetite to prevent further gains and increase our metabolism to facilitate weight loss. And at the time of its discovery, it was thought to be like the wonder drug of the century, but it wasn't. Something else was going on that researchers hadn't predicted, and it was the presence of leptin resistance, because the higher fat levels go, the higher leptin levels, and the more likely you were to develop leptin resistance. Why am I telling you this? It's because the lipostat is basically the set point of the fat levels in your body that your brain closely monitors. Now, stay with me here. In lean individuals, the lipostat appears to function really well. It switches on appetite when the lipostat drops, and it switches off appetite when the lipostat increases, right? So when it can say, okay, there's some body fat, we're good. But in individuals who are carrying extra weight, the lipostat seems to be flawed. And the set point of the level of body fat gradually gets higher and higher, and the lipostat continues to kind of defend that body fat, right? Which makes it really hard to lose weight. Now, what influences the lipostat the most? It's the palatability of our food. Okay, I'm going to slow down because this gets a little bit tricky, but stay with me because it's important. Now, we've talked about those high reward foods. Now, did you know, so I've just told you that the palatability of our food increases that lipostat, right? So it tells our brain, it's almost like a false positive that where it's going to encourage us to eat more. So the point that I'm making here is we need to reduce food reward, and I'm going to give you some strategies on how to do that. So like I've said before, high reward foods tend to increase our food intake, which can then lead to weight gain, which then, whereas lower reward foods have the opposite effect, right? We're not nearly as driven to eat them in the same amounts, right? So things like Brussels sprouts or broccoli, we're not like craving them. I've never spoken to anyone who's ever craved Jen says milking the cow. I've just worked out milking the cow burns lots of calories. I'm sure it would, Jen. What was I saying? I just lost my train of thought. Bottom line is, the key here is eat simple food, okay? So the other thing to remember is that hunger amplifies food reward. So as the old adage goes, hunger really is the best source, right? When you are surrounded by food options that are highly rewarding, your willpower and your desire to reach your health goals virtually vanish into thin air. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that eating fast food is the surefire way to gain weight. The calorie density coupled with food that meets our innate food preferences makes it really easy to passively overeat. Someone mentioned, I saw a little French fries thing. That's exactly why, right? It's very easy. No one posted anything about overeating Brussels sprouts. I keep talking about Brussels sprouts just because it's an easy thing, right? Or beans. But further to this, it may also be that fast food actually turns up the set point of the lipostat, which means that the fallback mechanisms that your brain has in place to stop you from gaining weight are somewhat turned off, and it allows weight gain to occur. All right, so bottom line is food that delivers a high reward turns up the set point of the lipostat, making it easier for us to gain weight and harder for us to lose it. So guys, so I'm just going to pause there for a second just to let this sink in. Actually, I'll say one more thing before I ask a question. This is probably the reason why most diets, to varying degrees, work to achieve weight loss. Okay, so even though their principles can be kind of opposing, right? So you paleo versus vegan versus low carb versus low fat. The fact that they all restrict food reward may make it easier for us to eat less and help reset the lipostat to a lower set point, which means that it can be easier to achieve weight loss without feeling like you're fighting the body to get the weight off. Another way to reset the lipostat, is with exercise. Now, as it turns out, so yes, Jen, I think it was you saying milking the cow burns lots of calories. It's also the way that you are switching you're setting your lipostat lower. So as it turns out, studies show that exercise might help you defend a lower body weight. And resist gaining weight in the face of overeating. And it's not just about the burning calories of the exercise, but it's likely to be that you're keeping your lipostat happy at a lower set point. And exercise can be the difference between losing body fat as opposed to non-discretionary body weight, right? So what I mean by this is often when we attempt to lose weight, most diets result in the loss of around a third of our body weight as muscle tissue. All right. So the bottom line is exercise not only helps us to preserve that or keep that lipostat low or lower at that set point, meaning it defends a lower body weight or a healthier body weight, but it also keeps our metabolism firing on all cylinders because it's retaining that muscle. Is this making sense, and is this interesting? I fear that I may have gotten a little bit sciencey there. I'll just let that. I've got one more thing to say a little bit more about fast food, and then we'll get into the this was meant to be a half-hour presentation, but I hope this is interesting. I'm really happy to go a little over, and if you guys need to come back for whatever reason or stay with me, we've probably got another, I would say maybe 15 minutes to go. I'm getting this. So hunger makes broccoli more rewarding. Yes, in a way, but it also, when we're hungry, fast food also tastes way better than if we were full. That's another way to take that. So different types of exercise have got different impacts on the set point too. Yes, I would imagine so, but the research is early in this space. Okay, awesome, guys. I'll keep going. I just want to share. So we've talked a bit about fast food. I know none of you guys eat fast food, but just so I've said it, the term brain damage might sound a little bit scary, but some early research has shown that this is what might be happening when we eat fast food. So there was a study that did MRI studies on the brains of people who struggle with excess weight, and they identified parts of their brain showed areas of brain damage similar to what's seen in cases of stroke appear in the hypothalamus, which, for those of you who are not aware, the hypothalamus is basically, it's a part of the brain that influences the lipostat, and it plays a major role in managing our body weight and our appetite. Okay, so researchers noticed that the greater the degree of the weight gain, so the heavier you were, the greater the damage to these areas of the brain. And while more research is obviously needed in this space, it's been suggested that some of the food that we're eating may actually have a brain damaging effect. And obviously, this when we've got damage to the hypothalamus, where our lipostat sits, it's going to cause those mechanisms that try to help our body to stay lean. It's going to throw those mechanisms off, and we'll succumb to kind of the effects of weight gain. So it's not only the calories that we're consuming as part of that food, but it's also it's the fact that it's affecting how our body responds to food cues, and it's also affecting how we are what's the word I'm looking for? How we are responding to our environment and to how we control our body weight. So it's all the more we learn about it, the more it's kind of like, ugh. But the good news is there is hope. So some early rodent studies have showed that when a fattening diet or a high-fat diet is replaced by a healthy one, brain function appears to return to normal and excess weight is lost. And I think that's one of the benefits of there is a particular system of nutrition that I personally recommend, and I know the girls love it as well. And I know that this is part of the reason why we see such incredible results with it, because there is definitely an adjustment of the lipostat. There is some healing. Again, I'm theorizing here from what I've been able to see, but there is definitely something more at play than just calories, as I've been able to show you tonight. So I'm just going to take a quick, so Jen's saying super interesting. Michelle's saying, I feel like I've just attended a masterclass. Awesome. So